how is it the people that win the lottery, just random people, some are successful while most lose the money? It's because of the meaning they attach to the money. Understanding about money, the economy, business, and the perspectives that go around that is all learned. It's all learned behavior. So if you grew up in a family that just works for somebody else, and everybody works for somebody else in a company, a corporation, or something like that, then you don't have the mindset of ownership necessarily. You may not have the mindset of building your own business or being self-employed, right? So it was Robert Kiyosaki who had the four quadrants, right? So the first thing is you're an employee of someone else. The second is you become self-employed. The third is that you own a business. And the fourth is that you own investments and you live off your investments, right? And those things take a progression. You don't just start out like, I'm going to own a whole bunch of businesses and stocks. It's like, that doesn't happen unless you're born to a rich family, which I don't know. Only a few people I've ever met have been that. But fundamentally, we all deal with learning the process. If you don't know the process, then you're not going to make the money. And what I mean by that is let's say that your father or mother or a mentor or a teacher, professor, or an older friend knew about money and investments. And they said to you when you were 14, Morris, let me teach you about the stock market, real estate, investing, owning a business, how to save money, how to wisely invest in your education, and all these kinds of things, so that you had a pathway and an understanding of, if I do this, then this, then this, then this, I can get to this point where I want to go. If you have that and you have the motivation and direction to do it and the support to do it, you can become wealthy. If you don't, you're likely to just get sort of like in the undertow of waves and get tumbled like a surfer who's lost the surfboard and they keep getting hit by the wave after wave after wave. You become at effect of having no money and no personal power because you don't have the freedom that money creates, so that you can't get above to the next level. You can't literally climb up the ladders is too low to get to the next level. And so too many people struggle because once they start getting behind or they get in debt, it's almost impossible to get out. So how is it the people that win the lottery, just random people, some are successful while most lose the money? It's because of the meaning they attach to the money. If you get a whole bunch of money and someone says, wow, okay, let's go. It's just party time. I'm going to buy a big house. I'm going to buy a bunch of expensive cars, and I'm just going to go on massive vacations. I'm going to get $1 million watch. The money's going to be gone pretty soon because the constant need to refresh the expensive items eventually runs out of money. And now you begin selling those things to buy new things, and eventually the finances collapse. And that happens. People get into debt. They give it away to family members. They do all these things. Instead, if someone has a perspective of investor, when they get that chunk of money from the lottery, they might carve out 10% and say, yeah, I'm going to upgrade my car, my house, my vacations, whatever. But 90% of it is going to go into creating more income. I mean, of course, after taxes, it's going to go into creating more income and to building the next level of success and opportunity for that person. But the differences between those 2 points of view is all learned. Right? Again, if you have an employee mentality, then you are at the effect of someone else's whim. The boss says, I have to work these many hours. I only get paid this much, so on and so forth. So that when you get lots of money, it's like this giant, it's like someone coming out of a cloister and then suddenly finding out that they're 25 years old and can meet girls. It's like, okay, this is going to be a really difficult adventure if you don't have any education, learning, or mentoring about relationships. And so the same thing happens with money. So if we look at what do people need to do if they want to make money? I think Kiyosaki's, what was it? The Cash Flow Quadrant, was that the name of the book? I think that's one of the best books you can read just to learn about the process. The second thing is to learn out what do you invest in? How do you invest? What are smart things to do? I mean, too many young people have just gone, onto Robinhood or something like that, or they go onto one of those crypto sites and they put all their money in there and they think it's like Las Vegas. They're just going to get rich because someone else put out a video that did. No, it's almost never true. If you see on social media people throwing cash up in the air and driving rich cars, they probably rented the car. And they probably either borrowed the cash or printed it on a color printer, and then they make it look real. So it's almost never true. And if it is true, probably what happens is they made the money because they had money and did something with it. And now they're telling you they made it this way, but they really didn't. They're just trying to get you to buy into their scam, right? So you have to be smart and wise and careful. And again, I'm not the poster boy for teaching people about education, finance, and money. However, if you learn the cash flow quadrants and you understand the process, if you'll go out and learn online, because there's so much free education, don't buy anybody's program per se necessarily until you know what you're buying and why you want it and what you want to do with it. But you can get a huge amount of education about what is real estate and how does it work? What is the stock market and how does it work? What is cryptocurrency and how does it work? How do I start and own a small business? And then how do I market that, right? So there's a lot of things you have to learn if you want to be successful. Having said that, the average self-made millionaire has failed at least 5 to 7 times. I mean, failed, collapsed, oftentimes bankruptcy as well. And you've got to have a tolerance for failure. And the way you have a tolerance for failure is by being careful with your money and how you invest it, and then by constantly learning and getting feedback. I did this, here's the results I get. Why did I get that? How can I improve? Try again. And going through this process over and over again. What happens when someone wins the lottery or any big, let's say they inherit $1 million or they somehow get very lucky and they get a huge chunk of money? The challenge is you've got to have the financial literacy to be able to know what to do with the money. The second thing is there's something called sudden wealth syndrome. It's a psychological shock that people get when they suddenly have money, and they often go out and just start spending it right away, right? So they get what's called lifestyle inflation. And lifestyle inflation, where it's like we talked before, it's like, oh, I need the watch and the car and this and that, because they become identified with the money. And now they're trying to create an identity in the world that fits their bigger, more important picture of themselves, when in fact, it's just money, right? The next thing is they get subject to predatory family and friends. Everybody wants to get their hand on the money in the pockets. And they also get subject to lots of scams because people come to them, like you said, people come to them and they're looking for ways to make money off the people with money, right? I mean, let's face it, investment advisors can be good. They can also be very bad. I've seen multiple people get taken advantage of by independent investment advisors who were just fly-by-night people who were running scams, or who didn't really know what they were doing, or who got lucky once or twice and then ride that through multiple tiers of people that just lose their money. In fact, I had a stockbroker once make a joke. He says, the true inside story is this. If we were all so good at this, we'd be retired by the time we were 45. If you see an older stockbroker, it's because they're still learning the ropes and maybe they've lost a lot of money, or maybe they just love doing it. Who knows? I'm not making any disparaging remarks about stockbrokers, but the fundamental thing is, he said to me, the fastest way to $1 million in the stock market is to start with 2. The big thing is this: people forget about taxes, because how they get the money, how they earn the money, how they make the money when they sell something or do something like that, it's often taxed, right? Now, we don't want to get into a tax argument here, but the fact is taxes are part of life, right? Even the Bible talks about, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right? Pay your taxes. But fundamentally, if you don't pay your taxes, the penalties, the financial, everything about it, it becomes a disaster for people. And once you get under the wave of that, it's almost impossible to get out from underneath it. And here's the other thing. If someone comes into a bunch of money and they start to lose it, they can often get engaged in more and more risky behavior to try and get that money back, to get back where they were at one time, right? They might sell their house or sell their watch and start gambling with it, or say, I know this one stock's going to become crazy good. And in fact, it doesn't. And so this happens over and over and over. So if you want to make money, learn about money. If you want to have stock, learn about the stock market. If you want to build a business, learn about Kiyosaki's 4 quadrants and build yourself up over time. Be determined, be focused, be disciplined with your money. Understand that clothes don't make the man. Watches don't make the man. Lifestyle doesn't make the man. And I'm using a gender, forgive me, but it's like, it doesn't make you. What makes you is who you are inside. And what makes you who you are inside is who you decide to be and who you influence yourself with. The best thing you can do is find great mentors, trusted mentors, people who are well educated in the area that you're interested in, and then be very careful and wise with your money. Test and look at feedback. Why did this work? How can I improve? Those kinds of things. The reason why I'm talking about it is because money is essential to personal power and the ability for you to create the dreams that you want and the lifestyle that you want and the life that you want, right? So what I'm here to do with Life Success Tools is to help you create the life that you want. Money is an integral and important part of that, right? It takes the ability for you to be, do, and have what you want to the next level when you have the funds to do that. So for example, let's say that you have a health concern, or you want to be preventive with your health, or you want to take more nutrition, or you want to get a fitness coach at the gym, right? Or you want these things. That takes money. So money is extremely powerful, but it's just a tool. The real importance is what you're building inside your brain, and your mind, and your lifestyle, right? You're building a person, you. And so you want to plan, you want to organize, you want to map that out, you want to watch these videos, you want to learn. Not every video has 1,000 golden nuggets in it. Maybe it's just 2 or 3 that you like. That's more than enough. If you watch the videos, if you continue to learn, if you find great mentors and you architect and build and vision your life, and then use the visualization and the other tools, you can change your life and become who you want.